Hey Planet Poke people, what's happening? It's me, DiogenZ, with your Pokemon of the Week. Looking at the comments from last week's video, most of you said that you wanted me to raise a wall. So that's what we're doing here today. And the Pokemon of the Week this week is Dusclops. Dusclops as a wall. That's right, people. We're doing an under-evolved Pokemon. And if you don't know why, it's all thanks to an item introduced in the 5th gen called the Eviolite. What Eviolite does is it boosts defense and special defense of whatever Pokemon holds it by half of their base stat. Dusclops' base stat for both defense and special defense is 130, so that gives it a plus 65 base stat boost. Now there's one caveat that you have to be aware of. Eviolite will not function on any Pokemon that is fully evolved. So that's why this works only on Dusclops and other Pokemon like it, because it still has one more form to go. It still could evolve into Dusknoir, but I'm deciding to keep it as a Dusclops because it makes a much better wall, a much more massive wall, when it has this intact. I did a little bit of research and I wanted to find out, because it only has 2 weaknesses, which is really excellent for walls. You want to make sure that they're the least vulnerable as possible, and Dusclops is great in that element too. It's only weak to dark and ghost types, so I researched, well, how many physical dark type moves are there, and how many physical ghost types are there, and same thing with special. So what I found was, in terms of dark type moves, there's only 3 special attacks and 14 regular attacks that affect defense. When it comes to ghost types, there's just 1 more special attack, so that makes it 4 special attacks for ghosts, and 6 regular attacks that affect defense. So we can clearly see by 14 offensive physical attacking moves and 6 for ghost that you really want to work and fixate on maxing out Dusclops' defense stat. And there's also, beside that point, to realize that our upgrading defensive move, which is going to be Calm Mind, only increases special attack. So you want to make sure that Dusclops' defense is maxed out to the fullest before you send it onto the field. Now, what other moves would I attach to this wall, being that it can learn and absorb more special attack stats from Calm Mind? Well, surprisingly, I put no real heavy special attack on this Pokemon, but instead I give it Will-O-Wisp to burn opponents and lower their attack power. I give it Rest so that it can full restore itself when it dwindles in health and your opponent has to do the whittling down all over again. And that's really important too, because when you get into a position with your wall where you're thinking about switching or where it's just going to perish, it's really important that you can have lasting power with it, that you have staying power with your wall, that it does not break down to your enemy's attacks. So full restore, it does also put your Pokemon to sleep, but that's fine. Dusclops can snooze all it wants once you have Calm Mind in full effect. And the last move that fixes this so that it doesn't get affected by Taunt is Nightshade. What's beautiful about Nightshade is that it does damage equivalent to your opponent's level. So if you're battling in matches that are locked to 100, to where every Pokemon's level is raised to level 100, that's doing 100 damage. It's going to do less if it depends on 50, but still, it does an assured 50 or 100 damage each time, depending on what you set the rules for your match to be. And that's excellent because it's not affected by super effective or non-effective status. The only thing it is affected by is the type. Since it's ghost type, I don't believe this will work on flying types or normal types, so that is one way that you could be potentially blocked from using this wall. But when in doubt, you could just Will-O-Wisp it out and rest and Calm Mind away. Again, if they did have a normal type or flying type with a taunt, though, that could put you in a bit of a situation. Now, in order to make sure that Dusclops gets off Calm Mind first, what I recommend doing is sending out a supporter before you switch out to your wall and enabling the move called Trick Room. What Trick Room does is for 5 turns it makes slower Pokemon go first, and the faster ones will have to go afterwards. Looking at its base stat for speed of 25, it's going to be pretty hard for your opponent to find a slower sloth than this thing. So its weakness in speed can actually be your advantage when you use Trick Room. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait to see what your opponent does first, and judging on its wall status, I'm sure that your opponent will be unrelenting at trying to make it disappear. But even so, you have to remember the Eviolite is attached, and you're getting a plus 65 base stat boost from that on both defense and special defense. So right on the field, you're already being a humongous bulky wall. You're already being able to thwart the plans of many sweepers by just simply blocking them out. Their attacks, as great as they may have trained them to be, won't really phase Dusclops. Not to mention that it's only got 2 weaknesses, and of those 2 weaknesses, you know, we've got it pretty much covered with the maxing out of defense and also with Calm Mind to kick in some extra boost for the special defense. You'll also notice that in the effort value spread I devoted a lot of EVs to HP, hit points. And that's because although Dusclops is a Mega Wall, it doesn't have excellent health. It only has a base stat of 40, so you want to be sure that it can remain on the field and have the most health as possible. That's why rest is very vital for this set. Forget about the fact that you go to sleep. This is a wall. You're not meant to rush through this kind of tactic. You're meant to have it stand on the field and annoy your opponents with burn, and making it so that every time that they wait out, they end up losing hit points anyway. So that is my set for Dusclops, a Mega Wall. Really an awesome set that I did not even think about until one of my viewers pointed it out to me on my own channel. So I do look at all the comments. You should know I look at all the comments of the Pokemon of the Week videos too. I mean, that's how I decided to do this wall, was by seeing what you guys voted for. I will like to ask you this question though. What do you think of the new format? I used to be on webcam with some stats here and some stats there, but now I've updated the graphics and I want to know, what do you think of the new layout? Is it easy to read? Is it too cluttered? What do you think can be improved, if anything? We're all here to help each other. I'm not a Pokemon master, and that's really why I do these series. You guys motivate me to look into the effort values and train, despite the fact that I don't have Wi-Fi to verse people. So I must thank you people very much for that motivation, and tell you that if I can do this, really anybody can. You don't need to be a super Pokemaniac like myself. I've done the eccentricism for my whole life and I've loved it, so allow me to tell you the things that I've picked up along the way, so you can use it in your own team. Alright guys, I'm DioGenZ. Remember to subscribe to Planet Poke for more of these excellent videos, and more, like metagame matches, so you could see how these effort values really pan out in practice. I'll see you next time.